Okie doke. So good morning, everybody. This is the last week of class. Thursday will be just more of a question and answer session. Today, they're just covering odds and ends. What I want to talk about today for just a few minutes is to talk about making sure that your website is compatible or complies with the Americans for Disabilities Act, the ADA. I've talked about it already a little bit. And so let me go ahead here, but I want to be more specific. So for example, if we go to my website, a couple of them that we've already gone to is if you want to make sure that all of your images are, how they're going to look, people with color blindness, you can go to Whole Blender and you can, look at your images and see how they're going to look, with different kinds of color blindness. So here's color, we have the simulator. So what you need to do is you need to load an image, and you can load whatever image you want. And then this is the default image that they provided, but you can get an idea of what it looks like. Because right now, right here where my cursor is, it says choose file to test. So let me see if I have something on my desktop that I can bring in here. Come on. Maybe I don't. I thought I had one of, this is the one that I wanted to use. Oh, here we go. This one. Okay, so here's my picture of Bagel. Okay, so this is the picture of my dog Bagel at the beach. And you can check just by, here, this is what it looks like normally. If you have a red weak person with color blindness, this is what it's going to look like. Looks a little bit more muted. A green weak, very, almost all of the red is taken out of it. A blue weak, and then you can look at dichromatic view. That was trichromacy. And we can, every time you click on one of these little buttons, you can see what it's going to look like. And, somebody, I guess, can't see color at all, then it just goes to a monochromatic view, and then you can always click back to normal. So for most of us, if you have a leaning towards art and design, it's sort of a non-issue. People with color blindness are just going to have to deal with it. And that's a sad fact. So if we go back here again, the other thing that you probably will have to contend with is to make sure that there's adequate contrast in between the background and the type that you have, the color that you've used for the type. And to do that, you can go to Juicy Studio. We talked about that before. Okay, and you can just put in the hexadecimal numbers. By default, they have black and white. So the background color is white, foreground color is black. And so you can put in whatever colors you want, and then you just go ahead and click the button, and it will, calculate the luminosity contrast ratio. And that's what you see. There's for large text, that's for small text, and then it says if it passes, AAA rating. So you just want to make sure that it passes. Again, if you're designing for people, in the design industry, it may be less of an issue. If there's someone who is seeing impaired, looks at your website and they can't see much, then if that's not an issue for you, then it's not an issue. However, you know, if you want to reach the widest audience, then that will become an issue that you'll want to contend with, that you'll want to have to deal with. Okey doke. So that's another issue. The other thing that I wanted to cover, let me move this up here. And I haven't talked about it much, are alt tags. And this is something that you probably want to deal with. So you'll notice that I have here my handouts page. It's in Dreamweaver. And here's the experimental logo by Iker Mendez. And if you click on it and we look at the properties panel inside Lightwave, what am I saying? In Dreamweaver, I guess I have Lightwave on my mind. Over here in the alt tag, I have written experimental logo. So you want the alt tag to be brief. You want it, to be short, concise, to the point. And if you want to give the image a title, which it already has, which is experimental logo, you can. But it's more important that there is a brief description of every image that you have on your website. That can be done in MobiRise. You can do that in Wix. And this is where it's done inside Dreamweaver. You click on each image that you have, and where it says Alt, you write that. And then if you look at the code view, let me pull this up so you can see this a little bit. Okay. Notice it with the image selected, we have image source, and you'll notice that it's in my image folder, and the title of it is studentsample.gif. And you'll see that after that, after the quotes, we have alt equals, and then in quotes, experimental logo. So you could also, if you wanted to, you could add your alt tag, in the code view as well. But it's easier if you just select the image and then do that in the properties panel. Now, this is alt tags for most websites are really essential. And I have not pressed any of you to do that, but after the semester is over, if you continue to use your website, I strongly recommend that you take some time and go over each image and apply a little alt tag to it. Now, there's some other issues that you probably need to be aware of. And this is, if you're going to do something that's more extensive, to make sure that the syntax that you're using is correct, and make sure that you have alt tags, that you have adequate, that maybe you have a title for the page. Because remember, by default, the pages in Dreamweaver are listed as untitled. Okay, so you'll want to give a title for your page. But you can go in there, and when you select the page, you can always, very easily add the title to it. So if I deselect that and just select the whole page. Okay, here's the document title at the bottom in the properties panel. I can add that there. Or remember, that goes in the head of the document. So by selecting the body tag, you can see here that I have here document title, Kirk Miller Art, and then hyphen handouts. I felt that Kirk Miller Art was the most important aspect of this page, and I do that for all of my pages, just so that when people do a search and they're looking for Kirk Miller Art, that this would be used, one of these things like document titles, in bringing the page up in a search engine. If I just used handouts, or if I just used homepage, or if I just used portfolio or something like that, that's too generic. But Kirk Miller Art, there are some other Kirk Miller artists. There's one guy who is in Folsom, California. There's another Kirk Miller who does, I think, glass. So, when you do a Google search of yourself, that's the sort of thing that will let you know, how much your page comes up or down, you know, in a search engine. There's also a Kirk Miller that does bodybuilding, and that guy just kind of rules the search engine there. I think he's located in England. And that's not me. I'm not a bodybuilder. So anyway, you're going to want to make sure that you have a title for your page. And then there's other things that you need to take into consideration. A few things. Let me go ahead, add this to the bottom of my page again. There we go. So for example, if I bring in, and again, I can bring in my page here, and let's look at my about page, for example. Okay. Well, if I look at this here, I'm going to look at it actually in a browser. So let's look at my about page. Well, what if I didn't have any styling of this page at all? What would the content of this page look like, and would it still be functional? To do that, what you can do is with the page selected, and at the moment I'm using Safari, we can use the developer tools. And what we can do is, let's start by disabling images to see what it looks like. Come on. It's not popping up. Okay, well, never mind. So let's try this again. I'm going to go back to the developer again, and I'll turn that back off. But instead, watch what happens when I disable styles. There you go. So this is what the page looks like with absolutely no styling attached to it. Would the person have access to this? They would. Now, if they are visually just, you know, they have difficulty seeing, they have visual, you know, sight disabilities, then you'll notice that this is where, because they won't be able to see my images, but instead the alt tag will be what is listed. And then the reader that reads the page to them would read the rest of the content of the page. And then any of the links that are here would be read to them as links. Okay, so that's a good test. Why this page here, kayaks on the water, is so big, I don't know. Okay, so let me go ahead and turn that back off again, or on, I should say. So I'm going to go back to developer, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off disable styles, and it brings the styles back. So that's another good test to see what's going on. Probably the final test that you're going to want to do, let's go to under Kirk's classes. It will either be, it's under both handouts, come on, or weekly syllabi, it doesn't matter. But if you want to check for disabilities, one of the places to go to would be the W3C. And I already did that. This is what their page looks like when you go to the W3C. And this is the consortium that handles the fundamental standards of the web. And it is vast. I have not read, but I don't even think I've read 1% of what's going on here. But if you want something that's very specific, one of the things that you can look at is for, you know, the web checks. So for example, over here under accessibility, okay, you would want to check that. And then one of the things that I checked was to go for designers, see what they would want to look at. And so here's a basic checklist that you need to go through. And I've already mentioned some of these, okay? You need the page title, that's important. You need image text alternatives or alt text, alt tags. in the text, are you using the proper syntax? And if you followed the guidelines that we've established in the lessons for H1 through H6 and paragraph tags, and using unordered lists or ordered lists, things like that, then you will already establish the proper headings. Because while they may mean nothing to us, and you may associate them with size, like a usually, generally speaking, a heading 1 tag is the largest text on the page, and a heading 6 would be very small. And a paragraph tag is just that. It would be used for body copy or the bulk of the text that you have on a page. But what it does, in fact, is it establishes the proper syntax of a page. So generally, the most important elements on your page are going to have an H1 tag. And you can have multiple H1 tags now. In the past, you were only supposed to have one on a page. And then you could have multiple H2s and H3s. But what that in fact does is that for a reader, and I have never listened to how a reader device would read it to somebody who is seeing impaired, but it would let them know that this is the title of the page, or this is the most important element. And then with each successive heading tag, it would drop down and it would be less, they would understand that that was less important or a subcategory. Now, one of the difficult things for readers is, and that's why tables are used much less now, is because it was difficult for readers to establish some sort of hierarchy to read those to people with disabilities. That's one of the reasons. Other thing, so that's headings. And again, we already did that with Juicy Studio, the contrast ratio. You should be able to resize the text. Now, one of the things that I noticed, and you should be able to do this when you publish your page, if you look at it in your phone, that you may be able to, oh wait, I see a quick, let me pause for a second just to answer 2 questions. Carlos has, so I understand that W3C is important with any website, but do alternate website builders such as Wix or Mobirise, they don't automatically do it, but they provide the tools for you to add. It's not W3C code, it's just an alt tag. So that alt tags are part of HTML, but they do provide, when you add an image, if you do a little bit of research on either one of Mobirise's or I guess I can show you that at the very end, or Wix, you can add alt tags. And then for Wow Slider, the question is by Natalie, would alt tags be added to the Wow Slider? They generally, the small descriptions may show up, but that is an issue with the ADA, is that generally Wow Sliders will not be fully accessible to people with disabilities. So to have 100%, to be 100% compliant is difficult. And again, you have to decide, what is the function of your website? Who is your target audience? And again, for a long time, I really didn't think about this too much, or I thought about it, but I dismissed some of it is the websites that we're designing, is because most of them that we design in our class are would be for art directors, they would be for other designers, illustrators, gallery owners, things like that, and they have to, they have to see, and so alt tags would become less important. They're obviously, they're visually oriented. They're going to have to be able to see most of everything that we put on our websites. So an alt tag, not that it's not necessary, but 100%, being 100% compliant would not necessarily be an issue. Resizing text is important. I believe that, especially when one of the things that I noticed that in the series of videos that we just got done watching on building websites from Photoshop is that oftentimes she used specific point sizes for her text rather than use percentages. I think that is a basic mistake in this day and age when you want to make sure that your website is responsive for a variety of screen sizes, that you would probably want to adhere more to, as we've done in lessons 1 through 12, to make sure that the text that we use is done as a percentage, or that we've used made some modifications with M's. Those are proportional sizes. Anyway, that's just a thought. I think for most, you can, if you hit the Command plus or Control plus on your keyboard, you can enlarge and it will be accessible. It's sort of rare that it won't be, but it is something that you probably need to test for that if you want to do that. So if you do include forms, labels and errors and that sort of thing, you would want to, including search fields, that could be an issue. And I know less about that in terms of making that compliant. Keyboard access with visual focus. So that is when we added our A tags, and we added for example, a hover state. You might want to also include within that for focus. And focus would be, and if it really doesn't change, that's, you only have a hover state that for on focus, it would be accessible to keyboards. So another thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you avoid a lot of flashing, blinking, or moving content. Because again, people who are sight impaired won't be able to, if it's a moving cursor or something, then they won't be able to access it. If you do include videos on your website, make sure that they have subtitles, or that they display the text. And that's when I use my when I publish the videos that I do here on YouTube and on the Canvas website, that I make sure that there are the subtitles that are available. YouTube does it automatically, so make sure that you do that. Under basic structure check, if you have followed the guidelines that we have established in the lessons, then for the most part, that you will be in good shape. It's when you deviate too much from that it presents a problem. But your website will automatically have the proper formatting. And again, they have, on the W3C, they're going to have videos and tools and that sort of thing. If you just continue to go in here, and here's some videos that you can look at. But again, that's all accessible from my website if you want. So, having said that, are there any more questions? That's pretty much all that I have to say. And that, like I said, that I know the school's website, they, anytime you put a website up that is for the public at large, it has to be close to 100% compliant When I did checks a while back on the school's website, it was about 70% compliant, and so was mine. And I think in part that was due to the fact that I had the wow slider in there. That was one of the main things that was a problem. Sometimes I may have had links that didn't go anywhere. There were, make sure that all of your links are functioning. If you have links that don't function and don't go anywhere, that would be a tick. There are also, let me show you, there is one more thing that I can show you here. If we go back to, where did I go? I did a search here. Oh, there we go. I did a search and just to do for, compliance solutions for ADA. And there are a number of websites that will charge you. They'll happily take your money to make sure that you're compliant. And here's one in particular here. Here's the first one up here, their ad. And you can start a free trial and you can get a demo. And basically what you can do is that you can have them test each of your pages and make sure that you are fully compliant. And generally, when you start off, you won't be compliant, not by 100%. But if you get close and you use their service as a free trial, it will get you close to being there. That will alert you and it will tell you the areas that fall short and let you know what needs to be improved or changed. So, here's a 7-day free trial, but $50 a month, they say that's affordable, but, for an individual's website, that's a lot, a lot. I don't know that I pay anything that's $50 a month. But anyway, there's a lot of these services that are available. And if you want to try one of their the freebies, you're welcome to do so. I have done that in the past, but then I wound up getting a lot of email from them wanting to know why I didn't, continue with them. Get your free scan today, things like that. But, for a large institution, for a major corporation, you would have to do that, but you would have people on staff that would check for that. And I would refer mostly to the W3C is that. But if you had to, then you could use a commercial website for that. Okie doke. Did any of you give it a try and use the Favicon Generator and see if that works on your website? Anybody? Let's see. Chat up. Come on, where's my chat? Well, let me stop sharing, and that will bring it up for me. Oh, not yet. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty simple. I did notice on mine, I used the more complex one, and that with Safari, when you go to Safaris, it used this alternative image as a background image, and so I don't know if it probably using the simplest one would be the way to go. And if you used, let's see, let me bring up just a couple of lines of code. Let me bring up Firefox here. So if we look at Firefox and we look at mine, you can see at the top here that it's showing up. I use this after the class was over. I used a little circular one instead. And then it pops up just fine. And it does the same with Chrome. It's just that with Safari that I need to probably go back in and tweak it. And it was working just fine, but then you start tinkering with it and you lose sight of things, and everything is working, but it's not working to my satisfaction. So I probably just want to use the simplest 16 pixel, and that will serve me well, I think. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys. That's it. Any questions before we end today? No? We're all good? You sure? Okay. Well, then after class, there was some, I'll stop recording, but there was a question that I forget who had it. It's okay, it doesn't matter. Mine's going blank at the moment. But I'll go ahead and I'll end the recording. And if you want to stick around, you can stick around. And if not, don't go away just yet, but let me go ahead and check off the rest of the roll sheet. And then you're free to go, and I'll help whoever needs help. Okay, so I will stop the recording. I'm gonna go ahead and pause it.